I was asking you earlier about Serpico. How did Serpico come about, and what do you remember about the first time you met Al Pacino?
I don't recall too much about Serpico, other they wanted a tough cop.
Hmm.
And I went in, and the director looked at me and said, "You got it." I said, "You want me to read?" He said, "You got it. Forget about the read. You got it." He said, "I saw you in a couple of things." He said, "I'm convinced you're the character." And that was it.
Another role which people remember is your role and the fight you have with Robert Redford in 3 Days of the Condor. How did that
Yes.
role come about?
They knew that I'd been a martial artist. The word had gotten out in the business about martial arts background. I trained with some of the greatest fighters in the world. Benny the Jet Urquidez, who was six-time world champ. I trained with Benny. I trained with some of the best people in martial arts. And next thing I know, I'm getting calls for fight scenes. Wow.
Crazy butterfly effect.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
One
Wow.
little thing doesn't happen and life takes a completely different path, right?
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Now, had you ever met Robert Redford before having to fight him in the film?
No, no.
And the reason why I ask is a lot has been made of that fight scene over the years. I mean, including receiving the New York Film Critics Best Fight Scene in Film accolade. Can you kind of walk us through what you remember about that fight? I mean, like, did you have to rehearse for it? Was it improvised? When was it choreographed, or was it something that you kind of designed on the day?
Uh, I kind of took the lead, and Robert Redford, who is an amazing guy. This is a big star, and I've got to do a fight scene with him. And I have to know when to pull it because I've never had to do that before. In a fight, I fought. And I got with Redford, and he said, "Hank, don't worry." He said, "Just don't knock me out or, try to hurt me." I said, "No, I won't." So I had to learn to pull a lot of stuff. And I remember I had to do a reverse kick, and it took the mantle off a piano. So they said, "Well, I don't know about that, Hank, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Don't you worry about it, I'll do it." And they said, "You're going to kick the board right off the..." And I said, "Well, I think I can do it." And they said, "Okay, and try not to kill Robert, whatever you do." I said, "I'll never touch him." They said, "You can pull it that badly." I said, "I can do it because my life depends on it, and so does his." And so I had to throw short kicks. The one kick where I take the mantle off, I threw it full out, and sure enough, I took the mantle off the piano. He was wonderful. He said, "Throw it. I'll just kind of like signal when you're gonna do that, and either I can throw a block or get the hell out of the way." So he was amazing, amazing. A couple of times got clipped. He never said a word. Next day, he said, "I'm a little swollen." How? He said, "When you threw that roundhouse kick at me, I didn't get out of the way fast enough." "Oh God, I'll never work again as long as I..." He said, "No, nobody else knows." So, okay, thank you, Bob. Nicest guy. couple of times he broke for lunch. When we broke for lunch, I was invited to come with him. There were fans of his all over the place. And it would always be, Mr. Doctor, Redford, can we please have one? He said, yes, and Hank Garrett is here. He said, who? He said, it's the guy I have the big fight scene with. Oh, yeah, can we have his autograph? Had he not mentioned that, they wouldn't know who the heck I was.
This might be a throwaway question, but you also acted with an absolute blockbuster cast in The Sentinel. I mean, the film had Ava Gardner, Christopher Walken, Jeff Goldblum, John Carradine, just to name a few. How did that role find its way to you?
I was recommended. A lot of people who were big fans of Condor. And the fight scene with Bomb, that opened doors for so many places because Robert Redford was one of the biggest stars in the business at that time. He had such respect. His agent started submitting me for different things, and it was a dream come true. Here I am, the streets of Harlem, Hoodlum. The fact that I went into an audition and I didn't realize I had either a switchblade knife in my pocket or a gun became part of what I got dressed with. Didn't go out in that street until I had something in my pocket. Oh, it took a long time for me to forget that kind of life. It's what kept me alive. Because so many of the guys I grew up with were not here any longer. A couple of times we were standing on the street, and a car came through. We were on the street. I'm standing in front of there was a car, a friend of mine had a car, and we were looking at the car, and this car came through, and they opened fire. Firing out of both windows, both sides, trying to hit anybody that they possibly could. They put bullet holes in the car we were looking at, so had they not been moving that fast, they would have hit us. But they did put 2 or 3 bullet holes in the car. And and a couple of the guys yelled, "We know who it is, get in the car, man, let's go. Come on, Hank." I said, "No, thank you. No, I'm not getting involved in that." I went home. Lived on a 5th floor walk-up. My mother and father were in a market selling fruits and vegetables. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what I was doing. And God, I met some people that got me off the street. And I went to a place I never forgot. At the school, I lived on 111th, and right on 111th Street, there was a school. And at night, the school was open. There was a gym, and there was a guy who was kind of an instructor. And I came in to see what this was all about, because they said, "Oh, you can play ping pong for nothing, and play checkers and other stuff, and basketball." And I came to take a look. And here I am, I'm like 12 or 13 years old, getting big, and I met one of the coaches. And he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to school." He said, "Where?" And I told him. He said, "No, are you staying in school?" I said, yeah. If I left, it would break my mother's heart. He said, "How'd you like to hang out?" I said, "Doing what?" he said, you're looking like you're working out. I said, yeah. He said, well, come down here. You can work out here. I've got all equipment. So I went in. I didn't have to join a gym. Start working out with this guy. Next thing he said, what do you know about martial arts? I said, what's martial arts? He said, karate. I said, well, no, I don't. He said, would you like to study? I said, yeah. He says, there's a guy in your neighborhood. He's a very dear friend of mine. He's the teacher, the sensei. So he said, I want you to go see him. It's not going to cost you anything. You tell him you're my friend. And I started training. It got me off the street, and I was training 6 days a week. And I became very proficient. So much so that I was able to enter competition. And I was competing and beating other schools. So that was my introduction, which pulled me off the street.